Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes, I think it's working. Great. So really excited to be here today to talk through how to build a data-driven roadmap using product analytics. And so before I get started, just a bit about me. My name's Esmeralda. I'm originally from LA. So definitely been to Vegas quite a few times in my life, really close. And I went to New York for college, lived in New York for about 9 years before moving back to LA. I'd always loved technology. I was a huge math nerd in school. I took math electives for fun, which I think is pretty crazy. And so working in the product analytics space is really perfect for me. I get to really nerd out. And so I'm also joined by my colleagues, JP, Torres, and Nick. They are going to be at the indicative booth. So if you guys have any questions afterwards, please feel free to come on over to our booth. And I know you're all here to learn about how to build a data-driven roadmap. So if you have any specific goals, challenges, this is a small, intimate group. Feel free to jump in with any questions or put them, use the QR code to put them on Slido. So to get into the agenda, so we'll discuss how a product analytics platform can help you understand user flows, how users are interacting with your site, your product, your app, your marketing channels, and the impacts that certain features or engagements are having on retention and conversion. And then we'll talk through how to prioritize those takeaways into a product roadmap using data and using really the insights that you got from the data. So to show you how, what a data analytics or really a product analytics platform can do for you, let's use a personal favorite, of course, Indicative, because of course we are the best. So for context, Indicative believes that data drives success, but data is only valuable if you can actually use it, if it's really at your fingertips to be able to make those data-driven decisions. And the complexity of today's analytics platforms bring barriers to adoption by requiring technical skills to really access those data-driven insights. And so Indicative directly addresses that challenge. So Indicative was specifically designed for the non-technical business user. You don't need to know SQL. You don't need to be familiar with how to actually analyze data in order to use Indicative, and we'll see that in a few minutes. And so, Indicative really focuses on helping marketers, product managers, as well as analysts understand and analyze complex behavioral data and empowering teams to optimize conversion, retention, and engagement. And we were the first product analytics platform to actually connect to your single source of truth, your data warehouse, to provide actionable insights across the entire customer journey without SQL or writing a single line of code. So what is behavioral data and why is it important? Behavioral data shows you how your users are using the product. What features are they using? How did they get to your site? What was their journey to convert? Or really, what were those touch points? What did they do on that path to conversion? And so tracking, collecting, and most importantly, using that data to derive insights is a vital part of building modern roadmaps. It's not just intuition. It's really a combination of qualitative, quantitative data, as well as some intuition put in there. Behavioral data is generated by the customer's interactions across any touch point you're able to track, whether that's product, web, app, email, push notifications, really any interaction your business is having with the product can be a piece of behavioral data. And so the outcome of having that is the ability to analyze and operationalize that data. And so for that, you'll need a product analytics solution like Indicative to really help you use it to derive actionable roadmap items, to help you visualize that customer journey, identify points of friction, and identify valuable segments that you can target. So what are we going to be focusing on today? So before we get into any analysis, we want to understand the goal. What is our goal in coming up with this roadmap? What are we actually trying to achieve? And so for the purposes of this workshop, we will be focusing on Petbox data. Petbox is a fictitious subscription pet company, pet product food company. And Petbox has a fictitious blog, app, webcam to watch your pet while you're away. And they sell a monthly subscription box for pet food and toys. And the company's main objective in the lens of how they're building the roadmap is to increase subscriptions of the box. So that is the goal. And it's critical to understand the objective, as opposed to maybe if the objective was we wanted to increase engagement with the blog, right? The types of questions we would be asking of the data are very different. And so we'll hone all of the analysis around that goal of how do we increase subscriptions of the box. And so now that we've established the goal, let's get started. So I'm going to navigate over to indicative. So before I dive into the analysis, I'm going to talk a bit about how behavioral data is structured, and then we'll go over the various types of analysis that we could do, and then we'll actually dive into a few analyses. And so I'll go through this dashboard, and it'll be a bit of a preview of what we're actually going to be building. But before we do that, let me walk you through the data points. And so here we have a data dictionary. So we have all the events. So events are those touch points. So was it a site visit, opened the app, opened an email, received an email? It's really those interactions with the users. Event properties, and this schema, this type of data format will be really consistent across all behavioral data. Event properties describe that touch point. So for example, if they had a site visit, what browser were they using? What was their location? Where did they come from? Did they come from an email campaign? If they did, what campaign was it? Those are all event properties, so really the context for that touch point. And then we have user properties. So user properties describe the user. So for example, attribution information, right? Where did this user first come from? What is their subscription status? So these are types of user properties, user data. And then lastly, we have user segments. So these are behavioral segments. So it's really a composition of actions and characteristics that can be used to derive these user segments, these audiences, really this list of users. And so, sorry, I have year-round allergies, so I'm coughing into the mic. It's very loud. All right, so first we'll go through the different types of analysis that indicative supports, or really that product analytics supports in general. So we have the journeys analysis. So journeys is a great tool for discovering what your users are doing. So kind of remove any hypothesis you have about that user journey and start from what do they do after they land on my site? What do they do when they sign up? Or what do they do prior to converting, prior to subscribing or completing a purchase? Like what are those most common paths? Then we have standard funnel analysis. So this is, what are those points to conversion? Where are users dropping off? Where is there friction in the sign-up process or in the checkout flow? We understand that not every user has the same journey. So we built our funnel tool to reflect that. People don't go in A, B, C, D fashion, right? Different people have different journeys. And so the funnel tool, or really the multipath funnel tool, is meant to reflect that reality so you can compare and contrast different user journeys to see what is the optimal or the best, the quickest path to conversion. Moving further down, we have more funnels and then some segmentation analysis. So segmentation is time series-based analysis. So for example, over the last month, how many people visited my site, how many subscriptions were there. It's really counts of either actions or users, as well as frequency of engagement. So for example, how many times do people interact with my product in a day or in a week or in a month? Or how many days a week, how many days a month do they interact with my product? And then lastly, we have retention cohort analysis. And so this is really important to understand. How often do users come back? Why are they coming back? What's leading them to come back and make those repeat purchases or continue with that subscription box? So we're going to now dig into the first example. So first, we're going to answer the question of what do users do after they first open our app? And so for that, I'm going to go over to the Journeys tool. And so I'm going to put in open app, and then run this. And then just a disclaimer, I am hotspotting because the internet, I was not able to connect. So may be a bit delayed with my iPhone internet. And so here what we'll then see is the most common paths after someone opens the app. And so here we can see there were about 2.5 million users who opened the app within the past week. We can see without doing literally any pre-configured anything besides just sending the data to the platform, what is their journey? What are they doing after they open the app? And so it looks like a lot of people are going on web. Maybe that's not relevant for this analysis, so I can just exclude the noise here. And so we'll start to see, zoom in, I think that works. No, it kind of zooms in a little. And so here we see opening the pet cam. So people are opening that webcam after they open the app. Looks like they're creating profiles, they're receiving an email, some are subscribing. So I can start to get a picture of what users are doing after they're opening the app. And so, okay, now that I've kind of explored a little bit what they do after they open the app, now I want to understand what is their journey to subscribe. And so for that, I'm going to put in subscribe, and I want it now to end with people subscribing. I want that to be their final touch point here. And so here we can see that there were around 300,000 users that subscribed over the last 7 days. And if I hone in on what they did immediately prior to subscribing, it looks like people are opening the app, they're receiving emails, they're clicking on emails. So it sounds like maybe email is driving people to subscribe. Maybe I want to see what types of emails are they receiving. So I can expand by email campaign. And so I can really then start to hone in on what types of emails are most effective in leading people to subscribe. And so this, I can then kind of take that takeaway, work closely with the marketing team, and seems like email is a driver for subscriptions. It actually looks like it's the newsletter that most people are opening before subscribing. So maybe the newsletter is a good driver of conversion. And I want to work more closely with the marketing team to make sure that that value is being highlighted maybe more closer to the top. And so this is, just one takeaway. Some other things that we could, take away from this are maybe we know these marketing initiatives are leading people to subscribe. Maybe I want to put in push notifications on the app, right? People are opening the app, they're engaging with Petbox. I want to maybe put in push notifications or a chatbot. So now let's move on to the next question. So the next question is going to be around understanding the drop-off to subscribe. And so for that, we're going to go over to the funnel tool. And so we're going to start off by, all right, we want to see who had a site visit and then created a profile and then subscribed. Because we know people have to create a profile before they subscribe. So we want to see where in this particular journey are people dropping off. And so we'll run this and we'll be able to see a funnel. showing the drop off between these steps. I'm going to go to stacked bar chart. The stacked bar chart helps me to better visualize where that drop off is happening. And so here we can see most people that do a site visit are actually creating a profile, around 74% of them. Again, this is fictitious data. And then after they create a profile, about half of them are then subscribing. And so I can start to see, okay, people are dropping off between these two steps. What can I encourage people? How can I encourage people to progress to the next step of what I want them to do? So I would then want to, okay, I don't need to worry about the create profile experience. Maybe I just want to focus between create profile and subscribe. And I can then start to dig into, add those steps in and further investigate drop off. Another key way to analyze the conversion rates are by different segments of users. So let's take a look at it by marketing channel. So I can group by their marketing channel, and then I will start to be able to see what marketing channels are most effective in leading people to subscribe. And so here we can see, I can sort by the conversion rate. It looks like content has the highest rate of conversion in getting people to subscribe. With other being the lowest, email being kind of the next lowest. And so this is telling me maybe I want to surface the content more on the app. Right now, the blog is only on desktop, it's only on web, it's not in the app. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe the content does a really great job of highlighting the exciting pet foods and toys that Petbox has, and would increase subscriptions if they had that content more widely available. And so again, these are just some of the ways you can start to really dig into the data and derive insights that can help inform changes that you want to make to the product or to the GTM motion. So next, let's take a look at device. So you can group by any of those event properties or user properties or even user segments that are being sent to the analytics platform. And so now we're going to look at device. And so here we can see that device, Android tablet has the highest rate of conversion, with the Android phone being the lowest. So again, I can then hone in my efforts. Maybe I see tablet and desktop have the highest rates of conversion. Maybe it's kind of hard and cumbersome to subscribe on your phone. Maybe specifically the Android experience isn't as great as the iPhone experience. So I can start to dig into that. Again, identifying where is that friction, where are those, that low-hanging fruit that I can focus on to increase my rates to subscribe. So now we're going to take a look at a multipath funnel example. So in the journeys analysis, we saw that people were interacting with the pet cam. The pet cam is that webcam to watch your pet while you're away. We saw that they were doing that after opening the app. So now I want to understand, is interacting with the pet cam also driving subscriptions or not? So I can just actually go back to the dashboard so we don't have to recreate everything. And I'll open up this analysis. So this is a bit of a larger funnel, right? There's actually no limit to how many steps you can have in the funnel. It's really just how many steps really represent what you're looking at. And so here we can see how many users had a site visit, created a profile, and we see that fork in behavior. How many of those then opened the pet cam versus how many did not open the pet cam before opening the app and subscribing? And so we can easily toggle between those two paths and start to dig into the data. So off the bat, we can see those that don't interact with the pet cam, that conversion rate is around 1%. For those that do, that conversion rate is about 30%. And so we can start to very easily compare, okay, the most common path or the path most traveled is the users that are opening the pet cam. Those are the ones that are subscribing. But does that really have an impact on subscribing? So let's take a look at that guy there. So if we look at those who did not subscribe and then open the app, we can see it's an 18% subscription rate. For those that did interact with the pet cam, we can see that jumps from 18 to about 50%. So again, maybe people that use the pet cam are more qualified. Maybe they, I don't want to say care more about their pets, but maybe they're more committed to providing their pets with the best things, right? And so that can start to tell you a bit about intent of the user base. And from here, you can start to make some decisions. Maybe I want to create a user segment. So from here, I can then maybe create a user segment of people who dropped off. Maybe they are engaging with the pet cam. They're doing all the things, but they need a bit of a nudge to then subscribe. So I can save a group of users from any point in the analysis and then connect that with your marketing automation platform to send them personalized message. We already saw that email was effective. Maybe we want to send them a specific personalized email, communicating the value of the combination of the subscription box and the pet cam. So again, there's a lot you can really take away as next steps from this multipath funnel analysis. Also, maybe you want to encourage more people to buy the pet cam. Maybe that's like the kind of starter purchase before they commit to the subscription box. So I can, use that newsletter to also communicate that pet cam. And so let's also see, let's try to explore a bit more. Let's see if location has any impact on conversion. So we'll group by country and try to identify a bit more high value segments that we can target. This is where my internet starts to croak. Okay, cool. And so here we can sort by conversion rate again, look to see what countries have the highest conversion rate and the lowest. So it looks like US actually has kind of a bit of a lower conversion rate than some of the other ones. So for now, Petbox is only in English. Maybe we want to look into translating it into other countries or into other languages. Maybe we want to have a go-to-market strategy in a few of the top countries that are on here. And so again, just another way to explore high-value user segments. So now let's take a look at engagement of the user base. So let's say, okay, we know that opening the pet cam is potentially a good driver. We know that content, the blog, is potentially a good driver. So let's just start by looking at how many users are opening the pet cam. So very simple metric we can then add to a dashboard. So let's go to event segmentation, and I'm going to put in the pet cam. So we'll do open pet cam. And so here we will be able to see the count of users who opened the pet cam, and you could do really any interaction that is meaningful or that you want to dig into over the past 7 days. And so we can see just really simple line chart. Okay, I want to understand the makeup of these users. What are the common characteristics between the people that are opening the pet cam? So for that, we can explore the data. There's really kind of two key ways I recommend exploring the data. One is the journeys analysis. So what are those common paths? You don't need any hypothesis. The other is this properties explorer. And so here you can see, let's say there's an A/B test, what browser they were using. Looks like most people are on Chrome, half are in the US, half are on an iPhone. So without actually having to do any analysis, you can start to look at the makeup of this interaction. And you can do that with really any event. And so here we can see, okay, this is interesting. It looks like half of the people don't have a subscription plan. Maybe I want to dig into that a little bit. I want to group the analysis by their subscription plan or their subscription status. And so here we can see that the most common or most represented group of users are those that do not have a subscription status. So we can also create a user segment of these users. We know they're interacting with the PetCam and they don't have a subscription to the PetBox. This is another opportunity for upgrade, another way to personalize their experience, to encourage them to the path that you want them to take, which is to subscribe. And so next, let's look at how often do users interact with the PetCam? And so for that, we're going to go over to the frequency analysis. So let's say I want to look at users over the last 30 days. How many days in a week are they interacting with the PetCam? And so I really like this analysis because it doesn't only look at how many times a user did something, because sometimes you get a spurt of interactions in a 1 hour period, but it's not really representative of how frequently they come to your site. And so here, stack bar chart, and let's look at the percentages. And so here we can look at it by frequency of the day or week or month. And so we can see that about 85% of the users are opening the PetCam 1 day a week. And then we can start to identify, okay, 10% 2 days a week, and we can see the 0.5% are opening the PetCam 5 days a week. So this is a really great way to identify your highly engaged users, your user base that's not as engaged, and again, further segment those users and create personalized campaigns based off of their engagement levels. And so, maybe we want to send a personalized message only to those who open the PetCam at least 3 days a week, right? You can do a whole bunch of analysis here looking at, all right, if they do engage 3 days a week, how likely are they to convert versus 1 day versus 5 days. And so you can really start to use engagement levels as a way to determine how likely they are to subscribe and, again, nudge them in the right direction. And so next, we're going to look at retention, and so behavioral cohorts. And so beyond engagement, it's really important to understand how users are coming back and how interacting with specific features are impacting retention. And so to do that, you can segment users by those who stuck around for a period of time versus those who churned, and really identify the differences in their behavioral patterns and attributes. So first, let's see how well does PetCam retain users? Is it a sticky feature that keeps users coming back, or do people kind of open it once and then forget about it? So for that, let's go to the retention analysis. And so we're going to start with just connecting the PetCam, and then we're going to look at opening the PetCam. And we want to group this by the week that they connected the PetCam. And so this is going to look at a retention analysis. And so let's just zoom in a bit and break down what the heck all these numbers mean. So here we can see for the week of May 24th, there were 50,000 users that connected the PetCam. So really that signed up for whatever it is that you care about. And then we can see that 95% of them then opened the PetCam. Looks like some people didn't end up opening it that first day, those first 24 hours. And then we can look at then retention of how many of those users actually come back. So we can see day 2, 12%, day 3, 7.5%. Now, we already saw from the other analysis, most people come one day, not 5 days in a week. So I wouldn't expect it to remain very high consistently across, but I don't want it to get too low, right? It looks like it kind of pans out around 2 to 3%. And so this can help you create a baseline of what your retention is. And then you can do additional analysis on top of this to see, okay, what users have higher retention versus other users. So we can start to further define our cohort. So here we can see by day 7, about 5.4% of the users are coming back on that 7th day. So we can start to expand this cohort. So maybe I want to see, do people that view the blog, is their 7th day retention higher or lower than 5% on average? So here we can see it's almost double. So people that are engaging with our content have a retention that's twice as high as the average retention rate. And so there's a lot of different ways you can really dig into retention to understand what behaviors are driving retention, what characteristics are driving retention. We can, again, look at device, country, marketing channel, anything that you're tracking to really pinpoint what leads to more people being retained. And so, okay, I see the blog, again, just further reinforces that we want to make the blog more easily accessible. It seems to be highly valuable content. And so there are many ways we can further incorporate that into the product. So one other thing I'm curious about is, does marketing channel have an impact on retention? So we'll look at marketing channel. And so here we can see that marketing channel, if we sort by 7th day retention, well, okay, we can see that paid actually has the highest conversion rate or retention rate by day 7, with referral being the lowest. So from here, it'd be very common for businesses to have further deeper level information on paid, right? What paid campaigns? Is it Facebook? Is it Google Ads? You know, you can look at those retention numbers by that granular information for the marketing channels. Referral, same thing. Maybe there's some referral partners that are really great, some that aren't. You can dig into that, maybe drop the ones that aren't being as effective if it's costing you money. So many ways that this can help inform your product strategy as well as your marketing strategy. And so now that we've done a ton of analysis to really understand what are some insights that we can derive from all of this behavioral data, we can then start to figure out how to prioritize the roadmap. So I cheated and already have a bunch of different takeaways from all of the analysis. So, you know, in theory, as you're going through this, you're adding things to your dashboards, you can also monitor how things change, right? We want to see, is what we're changing increasing the conversion rate, increasing retention and engagement? And so that's the big value of having all of those analysis saved to a dashboard. And then you can add notes, you can take notes on what insights you're getting. And then from here, then it's important to understand, ideally you're writing down the metrics, your targets, and then prioritizing the different potential action items that came out of the analysis based off of effort, ROI, resourcing, and using that to then develop what is your roadmap going to look like and what are your priorities going to be over the next quarter, year or so. And so that kind of sums up the presentation for today, as well as questions. I know we'll get to questions, but, sorry, just quick thing, and this is on our booth also. We have a raffle, so use the QR code, enter our raffle. There's 3 prizes, already forgot what they were. I think one's an iPad, or I think one's an Oculus too, which is actually pretty cool. So use those QR codes or come by the booth to enter the raffle. I'll give it like 30 seconds. And of course, there's the free account. That you can just go to indicative.com if you want to create a free account. And also the demo, actually, the demo data that I used is publicly accessible. So you can create your demo account within like 10 seconds on Indicative's website as well, play around with all the data that I was playing around with. It's literally exactly the same. So it makes it really easy to kind of explore what a product analytics tool could do for you and your company. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is an interesting question because I was a big believer of PLG before I knew what PLG was. I remember a few years ago, Indicative was very enterprise sales focused. So it was very much, sales guy, outbound calls, outbound emails. I actually started at Indicative as an SDR. And so I started off on the sales side and then went into sales engineering and now leading product and sales engineering. And I remember as a consumer of products, I don't want to talk to somebody. I want to be able to explore the product on my own. I want the product to sell itself to me, sell the value to me. And so we, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, made a big pivot to be self-serve. And so that has been incredibly successful for us. I mean, I remember the first time we had a conversion where they didn't talk to anybody and they just paid for Indicative. That was a huge win for us, and it felt great and just really proved the value of PLG. And then just the other thing I'll add to that is the data warehouse integrations really started off from a business need. Like we just heard customers say, like, I don't have dev resources, but I have all of this data in BigQuery. Why can't you just connect to it? And that was not a thing back then. And so we started to develop tools to connect to the data warehouse, really just ETL tools. And then there was a huge self-serve effort around making those self-serve, right? If we want to, in the spirit of PLG, we need to give people the ability to connect their data and get started on their own without having to talk to someone. And again, that's just been a big reward. And then, okay, the actual last thing I'll say is, I know there can be a lot of fear from sales teams of this is going to take away like my quota, like this is going to remove sales from me. But I see PLG as a really big benefit to sales teams because it's a huge lead source. I mean, there's a lot of customers that will sign up for a trial, they'll get the value, but they'll have 3 questions. They just want to talk to someone for these very specific, quick questions. They'll get on a 30-minute call, be like, all right, I'm ready to convert. And they just go pay on the site, right? That still counts for the sales team, but it was a 30-minute call instead of weeks or months of effort, right? So definitely believe in PLG. Let's see. For young companies with smaller bases and limited data, how can product teams effectively leverage a data-driven roadmap? So I would say a data-driven roadmap is really important at like every stage. Let's say you even have one user, right? One. You need to know what they're doing, right? What are they actually doing on your product? Now, the level of effort in terms of tracking, you don't need to start off with tracking literally every single interaction on your site, right? And that's probably not even going to be useful. You start with what is your goal? Is your goal subscription? You track the things that lead to subscription, and then you analyze from there. So the way we really kind of talk through it when we're working with someone that's onboarding, that's starting from scratch, that doesn't have data set up yet is, what is your objective? What are the questions that you need to answer that objective? So if you go on YouTube, I think I have a whole talk on this, on indicatives. So what are the questions you need to answer? And then what is the data you need to answer those questions? So I'd recommend only 3 to 5 questions, and then you only track the data points related to that. And then from there, implement tracking, and then you can start to analyze and at least answer the core questions that matter to your business. Instead of trying to track everything, that is going to be way too cumbersome, and it's not going to be as quick. The time to value is not going to be as quick for you guys internally if it's not done in a kind of stage phase approach. Is indicative HIPAA compliant, can be used to track healthcare consumers and their behavior? So indicative, unfortunately, is not HIPAA compliant. That is actually something that we are in discussions about being. We are, of course, GDPR compliant, and we are working on SOC 2 compliance, but HIPAA is something we are in discussions for. One more thing on that. We also recommend that customers don't send like PII data or anything sensitive, just in general for best practice. So in general, even if we were HIPAA compliant, I'd still recommend not anything very sensitive about the patient. Is indicative instrumental via no code as well as the use of it, or do you need dev work to instrument the events? So indicative supports a variety of different methods of integration. So we of course have an SDK that requires the dev person to instrument. We don't have a no-code solution, but there are other like CDPs that offer no-code solutions that can integrate with indicative. I'm forgetting the names of them. I think one might be RudderStack. I will check afterwards, and if you have this question, come up to me because I know we partner with some of the no-code tracking solutions. Or also, again, like if the data is already tracked in the data warehouse, we can connect directly to that without, it takes less than 5 minutes for someone to set it up, so it's very easy. And we have a WordPress plugin if the site is WordPress. Again, also that does not require dev resources. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
So earlier we were looking at the user journey and we were looking down to like email and whatnot. I guess I'm wondering, how do you go about classifying certain events that way? Is that something that when you're doing the events, you are necessitating via the SDK that there are those pieces of data within the object that actually says this is a sub-element of email marketing, and then you can drill down to email marketing and or is it something different?
So yes, for almost everything, except we will, using the SDK, usually email campaigns will have UTMs in the URL that they link to, right? So we will automatically parse out the UTM data, so you don't actually have to explicitly track it there. As long as it's in the URL, it'll be parsed out. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Like I mentioned, feel free to come by to the booth if you have any questions or just want to nerd out on any data.